Welcome to Thought for the Day for Monday, the 13th of December. And our reading this morning continues the story from Matthew's Gospel. This is chapter 16, verses 13 to the end, and I'm reading from the New International Version. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Jesus predicts his death for the first time. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. "Never, Lord," he said, "this shall never happen to you." Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. Truly, I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." Wow, what a lot there is to think about in the passage. So I would like to concentrate on just the first half of the reading, where Jesus is asking the disciples about who he is. To put this passage in context, Jesus has moved on from the feeding of the 4,000 that Deanne spoke about last Friday, and retreated with his disciples to the region of Caesarea Philippi, north of the Sea of Galilee. This was a city where the influence of Greek and Roman culture was everywhere, with numerous pagan temples and idols. So why would Jesus choose to go here? Commentators have suggested that it was a form of retreat. He came not to preach, heal, or verbally joust with scribes and Pharisees, but to prepare the disciples for what was to come during Holy Week in Jerusalem, his death on the cross and resurrection. In this region, remote from the influence of the Pharisees and Sadducees, Jesus would be able to speak freely to his disciples about what was to come, without fear of the immediate consequences. Clearly, Jesus knew who he was and what others thought of him. So why ask the question, who do people say the Son of Man is? The disciples answered with the common view that Jesus was one of the great prophets come back to life. They would have known from Deuteronomy 18, verse 18, that God had told his people that he would raise up a prophet for them from among the people. And there was at that time a tradition among the Jews that either Jeremiah or one of the other ancient prophets would rise again before the Messiah came. Moreover, the people failed to recognize Jesus as the Son of God because he had none of the outward pomp and grandeur in which they supposed the Messiah would appear. So Jesus then asks who the disciples think he was. They had been with him for 3 years and witnessed his miracles and been privy to his explanations of the parables. What they thought of him, as opposed to the general populace, would be critical. It is Peter, who was generally the most forward to speak, who acknowledged Jesus as the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Jesus is not just one prophet among a long line of prophets, as the people suggest by their multiple choice answers. But Peter's answer points to Jesus as the one who is God with us. The Jews had for many years been looking for God to send a saviour, someone like King David, who had led Israel to greatness, someone to free them from Roman oppression. So essentially, Peter was saying that Jesus was the one sent from God to save his people, although he had yet to fully understand what this meant in terms of the death and resurrection of Jesus. Which is why, no doubt, at this point, Jesus told his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the long-awaited Messiah. Interestingly, we have the first use of the word church in verse 18. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. This is well before the beginnings of what we normally think of as the church on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2. Jesus was anticipating what would come from these disciples and those who believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. So my thought for the day, or rather question, is, who do you say Jesus is? Like the disciples, how we answer this is critical. Do we confess him as the Messiah, the Son of the living God? If we really believe Jesus is who he says he is, it will affect the whole of our lives and the way that we live. Have a blessed day and week.